Welcome to Inspiring Business with your host, Mark Bullock, who is the co-founder of videosocials.net and of videointerviewpodcast.com. In every episode, Mark interviews business and organizational thought leaders who share their stories of how they inspire others by making a difference. You can find this show on videosocials.net and YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, and almost any podcast platform of your choosing.
Welcome, and today I'm delighted to have as my guest Blake Johnson. Now, Blake is an attorney, an entrepreneur, and an ultra runner. He's a second-generation estate planning attorney, so he has seen how good planning can lead to great results. He's the managing partner of Trusted Estate Planning Attorneys, has completed at least one or more a Spartan, a triathlon, marathon, a Tough Mudder, and an ultra. And he's also the author of You Can't Take It With You, the top 15 estate planning questions answered in plain English, available at Amazon. And Blake, it's wonderful to have you. How you doing, man?
Hey, Mark. It's great to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Terrific. Now, I know from kind of going through your bio a little bit on your website that you indeed are second generation. I guess it was your dad that was in estate planning, but what inspired you to kind of continue on in that tradition? And then you've got a couple of other businesses that you have started over the years.
Yeah. So initially did my undergrad in business management, emphasis in finance, and was looking to go to New York, work either in investment banking or day trading or, one of those fields. And then I met my wife and knew that lifestyle would not work for her. And so we had to pivot a little bit. And so looked at Dad's lifestyle, always thought it was interesting what he did for work, and said, hey, that works for me. I like that he was there for all this stuff. He wasn't too busy to be involved in our lives. And so that's kind of how I made that pivot to go to law school. And I get to law school and realize that, most areas of practice are not for me. And so law school is built for litigators specifically. And so I'd call my dad once a month and just be like, I hate this. I want to quit. I don't think I can do this. And he's just like, trust me, practice is nothing like, what law school's like. So you'll enjoy it. And thankfully, he was right. So I got out of school and was all set to go work for somebody else. And then in the time it took me to drive from Louisiana, because I went to school at LSU, back to Utah, to my parents' house, my two offers were withdrawn just because of the economy. And so I was like, okay, what am I going to do now? And it took me 3.5 months to convince my dad to hire me because he never wanted employees. And so finally got him to agree, and he's like, okay, you can go down to my Vegas office, which I haven't done anything with for forever. And you got 6 months leeway. Otherwise, go find a job. And that's kind of how I got started. And I knew I could sell. I knew I could bring in business. I had done door-to-door sales before. So, sitting down in front of clients in an office was not intimidating. It just can I have somebody to help me with the actual practice of law and what that all entails. And so, that was 10 years ago. And so fast forward a couple of years, we ended up being partners, and then I bought him out and been able to grow the firm since then.
Wow, what an interesting process. It's a little bit of a reluctant family, practice, but at the same token, I mean, going directly into essentially, that small firm, privately held thing, rather than having to deal with all the larger corporate laws or being in a bigger firm. I'm sure that's given you a lot of flexibility, and just knowing for myself, I'm a recovering serial entrepreneur myself, so it's you get a much more well-rounded education in real life when it's where the buck stops. Right.
And based on my background of doing almost every job I ever had was sales related. And so I had a lot of flexibility. I was used to that. I did not like the idea of working for a big firm. I did that during law school. and the billable hours and just being basically chained to your desk did not appeal to me. So I wanted to go for a smaller firm. Estate planning is great because it's not billable hours. We do everything on a flat fee basis, and so it's a win-win-win for everybody there.
Terrific. Now, there's lots of people in the world that are in estate planning, and some of them are attorneys and some of them aren't. But why do you feel that people really need an estate planning attorney, not just a financial advisor?
So I think they need both. You need the advisor to help on the financial side, but you need the attorney who's actually going to know that the legal implications of what they're doing. And so, you could for the most part, there are ways without actually creating a trust or doing your estate plan where you can leave stuff to who you want to, whether it's named beneficiaries, co-owners, that kind of stuff. But each one of those have different risks. They have different implications on what that's going to look like when you pass away. And so you just need someone who can kind of walk you through and say, okay, is this actually what you want to have happen? Yes, that's an option, but do you realize what that's actually going to do? Like, for instance, I see a lot of parents who are like, oh, I'm just going to put one of my kids on my house. So that way, when we pass away, we're joint tenants with right of survivorship, it'll go to that kid and then they can handle it. Okay, well, there's a couple of problems with that. If you have multiple kids, that child no longer has to share with their siblings. There's no legal right that they have to go after them. The other problem is what happens if that kid gets sued while you and your husband or your wife are living? Well, then your house is now subject to that liability, and you could lose your house because of something they did. And so, that may be the right situation for someone, but most likely not. And there's other options that you can go through, like a trust that would essentially allow for someone to step in easily without having to get court intervention, and you don't have the liability exposure.
Yeah, so it's a lot. It's a lot. There's a lot more factors to be considered, and really understanding the laws around it, and being able to, the undertone of what I'm hearing from you is the risk mitigation. To prevent putting yourself in, unknowingly or unintentionally in a situation where, the estate's at risk or portions of the estate's at risk, et cetera. So certainly see that. Now we didn't, plan on this in advance, but you're in Vegas and in Utah. So you've got your license to operate out of both states, I'm assuming.
Correct. Yeah. So I started in Las Vegas and then opened in the Utah office about 2.5 years ago. No, actually more than that, 4 years ago. And so split time between the two offices, but have other attorneys in both offices full time.
Yeah, I had seen you. You do have quite a nice team that you've built up. Again, looking at your website, so that's fantastic. So you don't have to be at both places at the same time.
One of the things that led to me buying out my dad was I hired a business coach, and he didn't like that because he didn't want me to spend money on anything. And I'm like, well, I need to grow. Like, we need to grow. I want to grow. And he's like, why? Like, I don't understand that question. Like, of course I want to grow. And so that led to the discussion. Okay, well, you can buy me out and I can go, but having a coach is like, okay, like I can't do everything. How do I delegate the right things and move on? And so that's one of the things I've learned along the way is, my superpower, what I'm good at is the client relationships, doing the networking, bringing in business. But I have other people that, make sure that all the processes are done correctly. We get everything handled, that everything gets moved into their trust, all that stuff. And so it takes a full team.
It does take a team, and it takes people to, we're in the process of scaling. We're now a scaling business. And my business coach, told me 30 years ago in one of my businesses that, it's great to survive for, 5 years, 10 years, et cetera, et cetera. You're beating all the odds, but the hard part's scaling. Because exactly that. Now you have to have other people involved, and you have to have processes, and and SOPs and all that kind of stuff. So kudos to you for realizing the infrastructure that you needed to put into play and the people infrastructure that you needed to put into play to grow. So
it's also
that's
until you get to that point. At first, you're like, hey, I can do this. I'm making a great living. This is awesome. And then you're like, oh, wait, I'm working till 10 o'clock every night, and this is not working. Not what I signed up for.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I think it's something that all, really entrepreneurs that want to grow, it's like the grass is always greener, but you've got to, you put in your time initially. And that time is absurd. I remember when, even this is my 5th business, and when Vic, my business partner, and I were getting it started with Practice Marketing Advisors, even before Practice Marketing Inc. We were trying to do whatever the clients needed us to do, and I found myself, designing websites and stuff at 2:00 in the morning. It's like in my 40s, and it's like, man, we got to get this. It's the same for everybody. You got to get people involved. You got to start documenting and setting up your processes, and realizing what you can do and what you can't do, and what works and what doesn't work. One of the more recent lessons for us is that custom is not really scalable. Especially in marketing, and anybody who's just starting up is like, well, yeah, we can figure that out. We'll do that. We'll, et cetera, et cetera. And you spend all of your time basically reinventing the wheel. Again, kudos to you. You've got a solid process. You've got a good team, and you're multi-state. That's awesome. But speaking of, and I think this is a great transition into the next topic, which is, of course, the topic across all industries right now, and that's AI. I'm seeing interesting things in AI on the marketing side. I'm seeing, I'm also raising the red flag on a lot of things on the AI side, especially in word of mouth marketing, which is our industry essentially. Where, I'm telling people, yeah, you can use it for coming up for topics, or you can use it to help you figure out, getting things posted in different areas, et cetera, et cetera. It's a tool. It's not a creator. Because, in my world, it's, we're having a conversation. It's you and I, it's the two of us, human beings, talking about important topics, and having a discussion. AI can't replicate empathy. AI can't replicate, who we are as human beings, our character, et cetera, et cetera. And, but I'm very curious on the estate planning side. I know that there's got to be AI tools that are coming out in that arena. Are you experimenting with that? What are you seeing in that world?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot going on. One of the best quotes I heard about AI, I think it's Mike Koenig's. He's kind of an AI expert or whatever. But he said AI will never, replace you, but you will be replaced by someone who knows how to use AI. And so I thought that was a great way of explaining it. Like, there is still going to be a need for that interpersonal connection, but someone who can use AI to be more effective and efficient, for sure,
Right.
be able to replace you. And so that's kind of the approach I've looked at it. There are lots of tools out there. I mean, we've been facing automation type things like LegalZoom and other online platforms for a while now. And yet I still know there's probably more estate planning attorneys now than there was when I started. So I don't know that it's really hurt the industry. All it's done is give people access to, it's an add-on for other types of law. Someone who's doing litigation, hey, I can also do your estate, and they just plug it into that system, and they don't have to be sophisticated with that. They just do it for the basic clients. But what it can't do is, AI can look through all the legal implications. It can do the tax strategy and say, hey, here's the best tax strategy structure for you. But that doesn't necessarily mean that's what's best for the client. because the family dynamics or what their real key thing that they want to focus on, whether that's, ongoing family needs, they want to, teach their kids financial responsibility, all that stuff. That may not be the best tax strategy, but it can definitely be built into their estate plan. So I look at AI as a tool, and it's a very helpful tool. It can help me review documents a lot quicker. It can help me to, summarize information and get stuff out. But at the end of the day, it's a tool that I use, and I actually prefer more advancement there because it does help me. And I look at it as, the people who don't really know what they're doing in estate planning, it helps eliminate them because of all the automation and stuff. I can handle more. And someone who doesn't know all the tax strategies or doesn't know, how to implement these, more complex planning things, they're going to be going away. And so all it does is help me in that regard.
Yeah, it's a helper, not a replacement. It is the undertone that that I'm getting from you, and that I'm seeing on our side as well. Even from a standpoint of I've been using it a lot as a research tool, much more than just the typical Google searches and et cetera, et cetera. In being able to think about things from a different perspective, because AI is processing a lot of different, all of the different information that's come into any particular topic or interest area. And so it's I'm using it kind of to expand, I might not have thought of that, or, yeah, that's a different perspective that I could bring to something when I need to explain something to somebody, as an example. So, yeah, I don't think it's really something to be afraid of unless we're just lazy, right? Because if you're just lazy and you're just trying to get, do the minimum, et cetera, well, AI is going to replace you, right? If you're as you talked about, if your focus is on the client and what their specific needs are for their specific goals and their specific desires, and I love that, teaching the kids financial responsibility as an example, right? So, yeah, you might be able to set up a financial machinery so that they don't have to know about or understand finances, how to budget, et cetera, et cetera. But why would you do that? Because, if you want them to be able to be self-sustained and not dependent on somebody else telling them, what's a good idea. And by the way, you should, spend less than you make, that, little things like that. Great. So, but if estate planning is not your only business, and we've already talked about a little bit, in scaling and growing and expanding your business, but would you have any tips or suggestions on how to be a better business owner?
First and foremost, get an executive assistant. They're worth every penny. I remember the first time I hired one, it was 2 years in my practice, and I hired probably the worst possible hire because I didn't know what I was doing with hiring at that point. And even with that, like with her being so bad and not the right fit, I still was like, why didn't I do this sooner? Because it freed me up to go do so much more. So that's always like, obviously you got to get the business going. There's got to be some cash flow, but as soon as you can, and probably even before you think you can afford to, hire that executive assistant or somebody to handle that, the tasks that you probably shouldn't be doing. So that way you can be freed up to go and do more. That's probably my first one. And then I really like, I've done my own version of Profit First, Mike McAllowitz. I think that's a great way for business owners. A lot of times they look at paying all the bills and try to keep whatever's left over. It's the same thing with budgeting. It's taking that personal side and putting into your business of, all right, I pay myself first, so I take out my profit first, and then I pay my bills and do all that stuff. And you magically find a way to pay all those bills and do all that stuff, so your business is actually profitable from day one. And so you're not stuck on that treadmill of having to work just to pay your bills and pay your taxes and all that.
Terrific. I think those are both great great tips and from experience. Yeah, I don't have a specific executive assistant, but I have a team, and I've got several people that are helping me, not just cross the T's and dot the I's, but like I say, something needs to be drafted, something needs to, process needs to get written, et cetera, et cetera. It's um, like you, it's like I am far better working directly with the clients, working directly with the members of Video Socials, et cetera, which, I just make mention of. We are self-sponsored, but we created Video Socials, which is the baseline of our service, and then we have the video interview podcasts on top of that, and which you're a client and appreciate having you there. But we're helping people get out be out there on YouTube, be out there on social media in video, whether that be podcasting, whether that be video blogging, whether that be shorts and reels, et cetera, in a real and authentic way. And Video Socials, as an example, is we get together a group of people at a time. We all take turns, doing our recordings, and then giving each other support and feedback and suggestions, et cetera, just because this is not natural, being on camera, trying to convey not only information, but who we are, our passions, our beliefs, and putting ourselves out there is hard. And I often say, when I've run the stats, and it's 1/3 of 1/3 of 1/3 of 1% of the global population does anything like this. So we're in a way, we're kind of in rarefied air. But the main reason behind that is that people are just nervous about being on camera. People are just, and so anyway, if you find yourself in that situation and you're interested in getting on video, being out there in a way that can help you grow your business, it's videosocials.net, and just click the guest tab at the top of the screen. There's no cost or obligation to come as a guest to Video Socials. And Blake, so how are people able to work? So you're working Utah and Nevada. That's where your licensing arm. But is anybody in those two states? Obviously, your website is trustedepa.com. You're on LinkedIn, estate planning attorney, Las Vegas. You have a YouTube channel. We'll have a link to that in the show notes. And we're also going to have a link to for Amazon for your book. Can't Take It With You: The Top 15 Estate Planning Questions Answered in Plain English. And I'm just curious, as kind of a closing question, what was your experience of doing that book?
So I did that probably 2 years into practice. I just kept getting asked the same questions over and over again. People like, what's this? And so I was like, let's start keeping track. I kept track of the top 15 questions. Said, all right, let me answer these in the book. So it's something like a handout, but more of this to not be reiterating myself over again. And then it's also just a kind of a way to like, hey, legalese is fun. You read a will, you read a trust. What does this actually mean? What's this actually mean to do? So that's why with the emphasis of answered in plain English. So it's something everybody can understand. It's an easy read, big font, that kind of stuff. So it can really just help you understand what the basics are and whether you actually need to meet with an attorney or not. And if you do, what questions do you ask them to see if they're actually qualified? So that's what it is. It's not, it's not going to go in depth. It's not going to tell you exactly what to do, but it gives you an idea of where you should start and if you actually do need to be meeting with a professional or not. That was kind of my goal with it. It's just, hey, this is something to get you started. And then, if you need to talk more, great, then we're here for you. I'm also licensed in Arizona, so we don't have an office there, but I can do work there. And then depending on how complex somebody's estate is, if they're doing really big estate tax planning or income tax planning, we have clients from all over the country who want to take advantage of Nevada's, asset protection and other trust laws So we can help, people from other states as long as they're willing to do it under Nevada law.
Awesome. So 3 states then, as well as those that are looking to, as you said, take advantage of some favorable laws in Nevada. So that's terrific. Blake, it's been a pleasure having you on. I appreciate it. Thanks for writing the book. You guys absolutely check that out. Check out your website. I imagine that you have some sort of a consult for people that want to get further information. Can they get information about that on a website?
Yep. Yeah. So they can reach out on the website. They can contact our office. My staff will set you up. We do free consults to see if it's something we can actually help you with.
Terrific. Well, listen, Blake, good luck on your continued expansion and growth, and I thank you very much for being on. Thank you for being a client, and look forward to talking to you again soon.
Hey, thank you, Mark. Appreciate you letting me come on the show.
You've been listening to Inspiring Business with your host, Mark Bullock. Your positive comments, likes, and most importantly, your sharing of this show with others is greatly appreciated. Don't forget to subscribe to the Inspiring Business Podcast on whatever platform you prefer. You can catch prior episodes on videosocials.net and on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, and all the major podcast platforms.